Hi, it's Laura Morley here, and I'm the parenting coach here at Lulu. We were all about helping your kids to be nappy free with less mess and stress. And I really hope that you're going to enjoy this video. Beaming into your lounge or wherever you are right now to be able to help give you some really practical tips and ideas to support your child with feeling super confident about using the toilet. Now, as a mother myself of 3 and a person who's worked with so many children over the years, I appreciate the fact that there can be nothing more frustrating than a kid who will not poo on the toilet. And there can be many reasons why this is the case. So I'm really pleased that you have actually come to this webinar. I think you're going to really enjoy some of the things that I'm hopefully going to share with you that will be new and different from what you've tried before, or maybe reinforcing that you are doing the right thing already. So I'm just going to share my screen with you because I've got some slides to show you. Here we go. Right. So toilet training, helping 2 to 4-year-olds feel confident and successful with pooing on the toilet is what we're going to be talking about today. This is officially your poo masterclass. But you never thought you'd be saying that you'd be attending a poo masterclass, but you're going to new levels in your parenting journey today. I really encourage you to take notes and to really get the most out of this is actually to write down some things and get some ideas as we go along that you can then practically apply in the next couple of days, weeks or months to be able to support your child through the process. So this whole training is actually designed specifically for kids who have done one or many of these things. They have never pooed on the loo, or they ask for a nappy or wait until that nighttime nappy goes on to actually do their poo. So they're actually withholding. They have pooed on the potty or the toilet in the past, so maybe they've done it a couple of times, but then they've refused to do it. And as of now, they're not pooing on the toilet. Or they poo in their pants most days, or they poo outside. You know, I have quite a few clients that come to me and say, Laura, my kid is quite happy to poo out on the lawn or by the tree out in the park, but just will absolutely avoid pooing in the toilet. It's so frustrating for them. So a little bit about me, if you haven't been to any of my workshops before, I'm Laura Morley. As I said before, I'm a parenting coach. I have 3 children. I'm based in New Zealand, here in Auckland. And I have written a book called Potty Talk, a toilet training how-to guide. I actually started helping parents with toilet training about 9 years ago. And now I talk wheeze and poos to parents every day to be able to help make the transition a lot smoother for their kids from wearing full-time nappies to wearing underwear full-time and using the toilet. I love running workshops. I'm a primary school teacher. So I really enjoy speaking with people live, but I appreciate the fact with the poo issue that it is something that is really specific to you, your family situation, your child, right? And so I want to be able to help you today to be able to have, to be able to watch this at a time that suits you best. So you can be on the couch watching it in your pajamas. You could be, taking the opportunity while your child's having afternoon sleep or something like that to be able to watch this, which is the great thing about this webinar. What we're going to be covering today is we're going to look at the physical barriers that prevent progress. We're going to have a snapshot of where your child is at right now. We're going to look from that snapshot and see if there's any kind of patterns that we can learn from. We're going to look at the underlying cause of not pooing on the toilet. Put an action plan together using a collection of strategies that I've put as the front door strategies and another collection called the back door strategies. So what I'd love you to do now is I'd love it if you could pause this video, and if you haven't already grabbed a piece of paper to fill this out, then I fully recommend that you do, or maybe you want to just type the answers in with your iPad. So the first question I have is, how many times a day does your child poo? Now, for most kids in the 2 to 4-year-old age group, they're predominantly pooing once, maybe twice a day. If you have a child who's pooing, say, 4 times a day, or they're not pooing, for days and days on end, and that they're withholding, then it's worth writing that down, because the issue that is going to happen for you is that if your child is got some kind of medical issues as to why this is happening for them, then it's going to make the whole process a lot more stressful and a lot more difficult for them, because basically their body's working against them. So knowing how many times a day your child poos can actually be an indicator that there might be some kind of underlying medical issue that you're not aware of. The second question is, what time normally does your child poo? Now, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that if your child normally poos at 10:30 every morning, then you put your child on the potty or the toilet at that time of the day in the hope that you'll get some action. However, what a lot of my clients tell me who come and talk to me about this issue is that their child actually has moved away from their normal poo time, and actually quite often they're pooing at random times. And before you started toilet training, they actually had a set time, but then once you started toilet training, it was all over the place. What is your child's reaction when you ask them to poo on the loo? So do they just bury their head in the sand and hope the whole problem goes away? Are they having a tantrum? Are they running in the opposite direction? Are they defiant or, saying no to you and just refusing to go and even give it a go? What is their reaction when you ask them? Now, obviously what's happening for a lot of children when they get asked to sit on the toilet, if they're a little bit, not sure about this change, then they're highly likely to say, no, it's okay, I don't really want to try, in their own way, of course, whether it be, more explosive through a tantrum or whether they're doing it in a subtle way. And sometimes it can be really, really difficult as a parent because we feel like, am I actually hurting my child in terms of backing them into a corner? Because every day I'm expecting that they will sit on the toilet. I can see it's just giving them so much distress that am I actually harming them in some way by expecting them to go on the toilet? And should I just put them back in nappies? So looking at your child's reaction in the way that, whether they're emotionally getting really upset by this whole process is really, really valid, important thing to do. Because we don't want to get our kids to a point where they are so upset that they can't actually poo on the toilet because they're, having a massive tantrum, they're not feeling calm and relaxed. The next question is will they use the potty? A lot of children will do their first poos on the potty in the place that they feel most comfortable. So it might be that they make a little hut or they have a little teepee or a little tent, and they want to have their potty in there because they want to feel enclosed and safe when they poo. So if you aren't currently doing that, so if you do have a child who likes to use a potty, then why not encourage them to create a place and to take their potty to that place where they feel the safest. So it might be that they really love to poo in their bedroom, and that's where the potty needs to live for a little while so they get used to releasing poos into the potty, and then over time you can start transitioning them to using the toilet. So that goes with the next thing of, do they have a special place where they like to poo? Now this one's really interesting because a lot of people who have private consultations with me will say that their kids actually like to stand up to do a poo. So they some might kind of hold onto a piece of furniture and then go and poo there. So they might hold on to the side of their bed and stand up and do their poo. Some children will like to squat, but a lot of children that you find have poo issues are often the ones that like to stand somewhere. They'll take themselves off to a quiet spot and they'll go and do their poos there, and then they'll deny all knowledge of it. So if you are concerned, because when you ask your child, have you done poos in your knickers or undies, and they say no, it's very normal behaviour. They're almost going, dum-de-doo, nothing to see here, I'm not owning this behaviour at all, I don't know what you're talking about, and they just want to change the subject and avoid getting changed. The next question to ask is, has your child got any medical issues like food intolerances? Are they constipated now, or have they been constipated in the past? And there are lots of other reasons other than food intolerances and constipation why children might be having problems with toilet training. So if you haven't already gone to the doctor to make sure that your child doesn't have any physical barriers that could be causing issues with their toilet training, then I fully recommend that you do that before going through any of these other processes that I'm talking about today. The other question to ask, and this is particularly for children who have regressed, in other words, those that were pretty good with doing poos on the toilet and suddenly stopped one day and haven't gone back to pooing on the toilet again, is to ask, have they ever pooed on the toilet? And if they have, what actually worked last time? Is there any things that I felt unlocked my child, helped them to feel more confident, that I can try again next time so that we can get, hopefully, them back on track again. And then the next question to ask is, what is their currency and what are they motivated by? So I really encourage you to really spend some time reflecting and pondering. I quite like to have this thing where you almost put a line in the sand and say, as of today, this is where we're at. Okay, we take a snapshot and then things from here will change. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time going over this issue of constipation. So constipation basically means that your child is not eliminating their full bowel every day or when they do their poos. So what happens for a lot of children is they will actually go through a process most days of pooing in their pants, but they know they're not supposed to poo in their pants. So what do? They go, uh-oh, I'm pooing in my pants, I better stop, and they stop, right? And then they have a little ball of poo that's left in their body. Then what will happen the next day is poo will come down, go around it and come out, but that ball of poo will stay in their body. And it will start to press on their bladder and can cause your child to have involuntary accidents. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that when your child is pooing, that they're actually eliminating their full bowel and all of their poos coming out. Now, a good way of doing that is actually just to check when they have done a poo in their underwear or in their nappy or wherever they've done it that day, have a look and see what the consistency of it is like. What you're looking for is you're looking for kids that are about on the Bristol stool chart type 4, which is like a sausage or a snake, smooth and soft. Or I like to think of it as being something like toothpaste. Now, if your child has poos that are a little bit like type 2, that's sausage shape and really lumpy, or maybe they have like sheep pellet poos that you can see there in type 1, that's not good, okay? That is an indication that it's really hard for your child to pass poos, that they have to exert quite a lot of energy to do that, and that their body is not in a healthy space right now. Equally, if your child is to the bottom end in type 6 or 7, where they have fluffy pieces that have ragged edges and it's really mushy or it's very watery, then this can also be an indication that your child is having issues with either diarrhea or constipation. Because as I said before, your child can have that ball of poo, it can come down and go around and come out, and that part there that comes out can be quite runny and soft. Now, the other thing that you need to think about is, and this is why I've put the ice block molds here, is if you are experiencing issues with your child and maybe they're not constipated, but they have the potential to be because they're withholding poos sometimes, you almost want to be more vigilant than you normally would by giving them smoothies that you can turn into ice blocks. And you want to have a smoothie that has high fiber foods in it. So things like kiwi fruit, prunes, using almond milk, things like that are actually going to be encouraging the stools to stay soft and easy to pass, like the consistency of toothpaste that we're looking in type 4. And if your child doesn't want to have, smoothies, then try giving it to them as ice blocks instead, particularly if the season's a little bit warmer when you're doing this. And you also want to make sure that your child drinks as much water as possible. Now, obviously, you don't want to flood them with water, but if you can aim for about 4 cups of water a day, that would be really fantastic to be able to help make sure that they are regularly drinking. Now, it's really hard, I know, if your child goes to daycare or has somebody else looking after them, to actually know how much water they're having. So it's a good idea to have a bottle that is clear so that you can actually see the water, how much they've drank, and actually put some lines on the side of it to actually give indications of what they need to have drunk by a certain time. And then the adults in their life can actually monitor and say, oh, well, they don't tend to drink much in the morning, but they're drinking all afternoon, and we need to kind of make it more balanced. So they're drinking a lot during the day rather than clustering at certain times and really pushing to actually, drink water at the wrong times. So the number one cause of your child not pooing in the toilet is actually, for most children, fear. There can be physical barriers that are stopping them, and obviously I've said that you need to work with the doctor on that, but there can also be behavioural things, and that's where a lot of children who are pooing on the toilet consistently are not feeling any sense of fear. They feel like it's a normal part of everyday life and it's something they don't need to worry about. But for children who are withholding poos, children who are hiding their poos, children who are going off and pooing in their underwear or pooing in the garden, and trying to avoid using the toilet or the potty, a lot of those kids, the underlying issue they have is actually fear. it's a good idea if your child's like this for you to think about it as being a fear that you may have. And although you feel like it's totally illogical that they could feel this way because they sit on the toilet quite happily to do wheeze, but they seem to be holding back with poos, think about it as a fear that you have. So if I was going to use an example, I would say that a fear I have is sharks. I don't want to watch people swim with sharks. I don't want to watch sharks on TV. I certainly don't want to swim with sharks myself. And I will avoid anything to do with it. Now, what does that mean? It means that if you were to say to me tomorrow, do you want to go swim with sharks? I'd say no. If you were to ask me all through the day, I'd probably start getting really angry with you and saying, no, I don't, because I'd start getting more and more irritated by you asking the same question over and over again. Do you want to go and swim with sharks? Do you want to go swim with sharks? Have you got, and I'd be saying, no, and then often what people will do is they'll say, well, in order to make you feel better, I'll help you to feel safe. So what they'll do is they'll make sure that their child has a step stool and that they can put their feet flat and ground on the step stool. So I'll just go back to the slide here. You can see here that I've got the 2-up step stool here. So through doing that, they'll try and make their kid feel really safe on the toilet. Maybe they'll thinking their kid might fall into the toilet and not feel safe on it. And so with the idea of the step stool, they've got more independence. Their feet can be flat and grounded. When they're sitting on the step stool, they can have their knees above their bottom, being in a squatting position, and therefore their colon's nice and straight, and they're actually able to poo easier. And a lot of people will also, of course, put a toilet insert on the top of the toilet to keep the seat a little bit easier for your child to sit on, which is great. But if you were to say that to me while I am in the process of, wanting to swim with sharks, and you want to put me in a shark cage and that's going to make me feel safe, you know what? I'd still say no. So although some of you watching this may have actually already got, a good, nice high step stool, you might have a toilet insert, and there's no reason why your child feels like they're going to fall into the toilet, they're still refusing, right? And you have to ask yourself the question of why. I've made my child feel safe, so that should overcome their fear. The reality is, though, in order to get me to swim with sharks, you probably have to offer me $1 million to go and swim with sharks in a shark cage. So I'd have to feel safe and the currency would have to be right in order for me to face my fear. So I guess the question I have for you is if you have a fear, what would actually be the thing that would tip you over the edge to face that fear? Because you've got to understand, I guess, that our kids' fears are valid. To them, it is very, very real. And to us, it may seem completely illogical, but to them, it is very real indeed. So what I want you to think of is I want you to think of today's session, we're going to have an action plan, right? So the first thing with the action plan that we're going to talk about is positive consequences. So we're going to talk about toileting as part of a game, because if your child sees going to the toilet and doing a poo as an extension of play, then they're going to be in a lot more relaxed state, and they're going to be far easier to work with. I'm going to, as I said before, talk to you about the front and the back door methods, and we're also going to start introducing this idea of negative natural consequences. Now, obviously, consequences for your child are going to be different, and so I'm going to try and, as much as I can, give you some ideas around that, of what that could look like for your child in your unique situation. So with the front door method, what I want you to think of when you're thinking the front door is I want you to be thinking of the methods that are hopefully the way that your child will use the toilet. Now, in the background, we will have the back door method that will be supporting them and encouraging them if the front door strategies don't work for your child. And you can actually use them in tandem or parallel at the same time. So the first thing that I would do if I was using the front door method is I'd actually have an age-appropriate chat. Now, I wouldn't actually say to my kid, okay, we're going to go and have a talk now about pooing on the toilet. But what I would do instead is I would do an activity where we were side by side together, and I just bring it up in conversation. So it might be that you're doing Play-Doh or something with your child, or making puzzles or drawing a picture or whatever. And then while you're, with them, you could say something like, I've noticed that, you've been doing some poos on your knickers lately, and you could call them, the digger undies, or, your Dora knickers or whatever. And I noticed that you've been doing some poos in there. Is there anything that is making you feel sad about using the toilet? Or when I say age appropriate chat, I'm saying use language that they understand. Now, obviously, if they're non-verbal, then this isn't going to work. But for most 2 to 4 year olds, they can at least communicate in some form. And some will be able to articulate, I'm scared of my insides falling out, or I'm scared of the splash. But for a lot of children, they might not be able to articulate what is, making them fearful. But if you can get them to a point where they can explain to you what would help them to feel safe or better when they're doing poos on the toilet or the potty, then that would be a really positive step in the right direction. So with the front door method, once you've had that age appropriate chat, you don't have to keep talking and asking them all the time and hovering around asking them if they want to poo, because as I said before, what that does is it builds anxiety. So if you keep saying to me, do you want to swim with sharks? Do you want to swim with sharks? My answer is always going to be no, except I'm probably going to get more forceful and more angry with you if you keep asking me the same question. So the temptation is to nag them and keep reminding them all the time. But what that does is it tends to fuel and build anxiety. So you don't want to nag and you don't want to talk about it all day. What is a good idea is to think, right, I'm going to have twice a day where I'm going to really make a concerted effort. When my child does a wee on the toilet, I'm going to congratulate them for doing wees, and then we're going to tie a poo stop into the wee stop. In other words, we're going to try and teach our child that wee and poo stops happen at the same time, and we don't have to make separate times to go to the toilet to do a poo if we don't want to. So if your child's consistently doing well with weeing on the toilet, great, because you know what that means. It means that you're at a point where they're getting some success. And so build on that, the fact that they're doing that really well, and try and get them to poo as well. Now, if you've got a little boy who's insistent on standing up to do his poos, and he does not want to do his wees, and he doesn't want to sit down to do his poos, then that can be a real issue. So if you can try and get him to sit down to do his wees, then poos will hopefully naturally follow. A lot of people who come to me with boys who are 3 or 4 year olds who are standing to wee, that's their issue. They will wee and then they'll run off in celebration that they've done wees, but they won't take the time to turn around, sit down and do their poo, and that's often their issue. So what you want to do is think, is there times in the day? So go back to that snapshot where you're answering those questions and say, is there a certain once or twice a day where I'm going to be intentional at going with my child to the toilet and actually talking them through what to do? So when you do get them to the toilet, what you want to do is help them to relax and make sure that they've got their knees above their bottom and their elbows on their knees. So make sure the step stool's nice and high. You might want to draw a little picture on each of their knees and get them to cover it up. So you might put a little star and a moon or something, or ask them, do you want smiley faces today? And then say, let's cover them up with your elbows so that we can't see the pictures. And then we're going to push down like we're passing wind and see if we can drop our bombs into the toilet. What you want to do is you want to be really, really calm and kind of, if you can, try and help them to relax by maybe listening to a favorite song that they really love, and that will give them a time frame. So there is actually on YouTube at the moment the Wiggles song that might help. I wouldn't ever have my phone or tablet and actually get them to sit there with the phone or tablet to do their poos. I find it easier if they are going to have some kind of technology to use that after the fact they've done poos, or for you to have it on the windowsill so they can listen to the song, but not to actually watch a screen. The reason for that is because kids who are watching screens are basically zoning out and they're not actually getting their body to do what it's supposed to do in terms of getting the business on the toilet. So we really want them to be concentrating and not constantly distracted. So one thing that you can show them at another time of the day that is not obviously at the time when they are when they're in the throes of trying to poo on the toilet, is actually to show them the Poo Goes to Pooland app. Now this is a free app that you can download from the App Store, and it's also on Google Play. So what you do with this is you make Pooh a character, all right? So in this case, what you can say is, Pooh's really shy. He wants to go to Pooland, but the only way to get there is to go through the toilet to see his friends and family. And so in a way, your child is helping Pooh. So instead of Pooh feeling like it's part of their body and it's going to fall out and their insides are going to fall out when they go to the toilet, they're actually learning that they don't need to have something soft and padded close to their bottom, that it's okay to have a naked bottom and do a poo, because they're actually helping poo to be released and go to poo land. And you could even get your child to name the poo and wave goodbye when they're flushing it away. The other thing that you can do for other kids is to actually have a character that writes to them. So if your child is completely obsessed with a particular character, say from Paw Patrol or Frozen or Peppa Pig or Dora or anything else, right? Getting that character that they're absolutely obsessed with to write to them can really, really help. And that character can actually bring them some little treats each day. So there might be that the little character writes a letter and has a special box that either goes into the letter box each morning or is on the bench or somewhere special where they can see it and they can look forward to it when they wake up, that character is written to them. And so it could be as simple as the character saying something like, I've bought you these stickers because I know that you've been really clever with using the toilet. And that can be obviously a positive way of reinforcing from an external character that's not you driving the whole process, but also that character can teach your child along the way. So for example, you could say, the character's bought a box of toilet floaties. Now, toilet floaties would be some kind of cereal that's coloured, for example, Cheerios or Fruit Loops. And then you put it into a different little box so they don't know that it's food. Throw it into the toilet and say to the child, I want you to choose your 3 favourite colours. We'll just throw 3 in, and then we're going to actually drop our bombs and see if we can hit the toilet floaties. Now, if you've done 3 toilet floaties, then you know that they are trying their best to poo and then poo again and then poo again, because lots of kids, when they do their first couple of poos on the toilet, they'll just drop one little nugget and then they'll go all finished and done. Well, actually, they're not. There's still poo in there. It needs to come out, but they haven't eliminated their full bowel and they just want to get off and play. Right? So by actually giving them something to really focus on, that can help. The character could also bring them some magic toilet water, aka some food colouring with a sticker on the front of the bottle that is their favourite character, and that could be in the little box the next day. Another thing that they could do is actually have a dump truck book and talk about how dump trucks tip up their load and all the soil and the rocks come down, and we're going to be like the dump trucks and see if we can dump our load in the toilet today. The other note here, Paulina the Poo Poo Fairy, is actually a story that's been written by an American lady, which is all about this fairy who goes to the toilet with the child and helps them along the way. And there's actually a physical doll. So you could have a character that actually accompanies your child to the toilet, sits somewhere special that they can see them, and then your child feels safe that that character is there to help them along the way. So maybe it's their favourite friend or something like that. So by what I'm trying to say here is that the more that you can tie into their fantasy world, the better it is. And remember, today what I'm doing is giving you a smorgasbord of ideas. So you're not going to use all of these ideas on the first day when you're trying to get your child to poo on them, on the toilet, right? It's not going to work. So it might be that introducing some of these ideas you do gradually to find out what's going to be the winning formula for your child. I wanted to give you lots of ideas around this idea of desensitizing the toilet, helping toileting and toilet visits to feel like a natural part of everyday life, and building on the things that they can already do where they're being successful with their ways, and now we're building on that and trying to get them to poo on the toilet. By keeping them super, super relaxed, that's going to be the perfect soil, if you like, in order for them to flourish. If they are feeling really, really anxious and they're getting really grumpy and really resistant and having lots of tantrums, then clearly it's not working and you need to do something else. So what I want you to think next, and if you've got your piece of paper or your tablet, I want you to think about, if you were going to instantly reward your child, what would you be giving them as a celebration? So I don't want you to think of it like I'm going to bribe my child. I want you to think of it more like, if I'm going to give my child an instant reward to celebrate a little step in the right direction, what would it be? Because remember how I talked before about the only way you could get me to swim with sharks would be to have the right currency, yeah? If your child learns cause and effect, like I do this and then this happens, then they're going to be far more likely to be really excited about wanting to try it and giving it a little go, rather than feeling like it's this massive big mountain that they have to climb. We want to show them little steps and celebrate each of those steps in the right direction. So an instant reward for your child might be a celebration toy, a toy that they always have wanted to play with, but they don't get the opportunity to, right? It might be that you take them to the shop, you have a certain budget, you choose that special toy, and it sits up on the bookshelf for celebrating your child doing the right thing, meeting whatever the goal is that you've set. And the important thing to realize is that if you were to give that celebration toy forever, then your child probably wouldn't repeat the behavior. So what you want to do with the celebration toy is actually have it something that they have to keep earning back. So you're better to give them the celebration toy for an hour, and then put the timer on, and then put the toy back on the bookshelf where they can see it but not touch it, ready for the next time they meet whatever the goal is. Some people will use technology time, so they'll actually use their screen time, either TV or tablet time. They will take it away completely out of their child's normal routine, and then what they'll do with their technology time is, as soon as the child has met the goal, then they will earn the technology time. So it might be you're going to have 15 minutes watching a particular story. Playing at home or making something can be your child's instant reward as well. Whatever you choose as the instant reward, though, make sure it's not something like a walk to the park to have a swing, or going to the shops to have an ice cream or something like that, because it might be that your child poos just before they go to bed. You're not going to be going and taking them to the park. It needs to be something that's instant that you can do. So it might be that you say, we're going to have this craft box and we're going to make something lovely from the craft box if your child's really into crafty things, or we're going to bake a cake, or decorate some cupcakes, or do something together that we're going to really love, build something, whatever. So what our kids get the message of is that it's not all about, I'm going to give you this toy and then it's over, but it might be, I'm going to give you quality time with me as a reinforcer. So actually using your attention as a tool can be incredibly powerful. I find it really helpful if you can tie in the instant reward with your child's love language. And if you haven't read Gary Chapman's book on the 5 love languages, then it's well worth doing that, because he actually talks about the different ways that children give and receive love. And if you can be giving their reward and tie with what they're really passionate about, then that can make a difference. I'm assuming that you're watching this video and you've probably already tried giving your child a sticker or offering them a lolly, and you're probably finding that those strategies are probably not working. I do find that for most kids, the offer of leaving the play area and going and doing a poo in the toilet for a sticker is just not cutting the mustard. They're not interested in it, and they will make it very clear to you, I think not. Right? So you want to be choosing a reward that is their currency, that's something that they really value, that is going to be a way of celebrating the little steps in the right direction. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to be giving them, a celebration toy for pooing on the toilet at this stage. That might be a completely unrealistic expectation for them. They can't do it. You might have tried it before, where you've said, I will give you this, this, and this if you poo on the toilet, and they don't do it. So for those types of children, what you actually need to do is use the backdoor method. So the backdoor method is all about breaking the whole process down into manageable steps, so your child is not flipping into this fight and flight mode where they feel overwhelmed and they can't do it and they won't do it. So what you want to do when you're using the backdoor method is to stay on each stage until their anxiety is reduced and they're consistently mastering it before you move on. The great thing about the backdoor method is it makes you feel like there is a way to encourage your child that doesn't feel like you're being pushy, and doesn't feel, that your child is becoming stressed or anxious or worried. It's actually a way of reducing that and getting them to a point where they're happy and healthy and they're in that workable kind of space again. So when you're using the backdoor method, what you want to do is change one variable at a time. So you'll see down the bottom of these steps, I've talked about poos and a pull-up anywhere in the house, right? So that is something that you might do to encourage your child to eliminate their full bowel, because the last thing we want is your child getting constipated, getting anxious, withholding, and they might just need a period of time and working with your medical professionals to get their bowels back into normal function. Yeah, they might need to go on medication. You might need to work on their diet, particularly if they've got food intolerances. So realistically for them, pooing in a pull-up anywhere in the house is a win. Yeah, they feel relaxed, they feel happy, and you're all good. Now, when you feel like they've got to that point where they are either asking you for a pull-up, or you are saying to them, hey, I think it's pull-up time. And of course, you wouldn't be giving them pull-ups all the time. you'd be giving it to them for a limited amount of time, then what you want to do is you want to move to the next step. So the next step is changing one variable. So one thing that we're changing each time. The next one would be location. So instead of pooing anywhere in the house, they're now going to poo in a pull-up in the toilet room and get used to that. And some kids take 3 days, some kids take 7 days, some kids take a couple of weeks to get their head around that change. The next step might be changing their position. So getting poos in the pull-up on the toilet. And so instead of standing in the toilet room where they're kind of, how I talked before about a lot of kids being used to actually standing to poo and having to get used to being in a squatting position is quite, a challenge for them. So changing the position, still with the pull-up on, but changing that one variable. And then the next one is pooing using the Holy pull-up so that the poos fall through the pull-up and into the toilet. And the last one is your child pooing on the toilet with a naked bottom and no need to have a pull-up at all. So this kind of process can take, 21 days minimum, or it can take months. It just depends what your doctor says in terms of whether they feel that there's any physical barriers. It will obviously take a lot longer to move through this behavioural kind of steps. But if your child's pretty confident, then you can expect that it will take about 21 days approximately. And obviously that's a generalization, but it kind of gives you a little bit of a guideline. So what are you going to do or say if your child does a poo in their pants? I want you to pause this right now, this video, and write it down on your piece of paper or on your tablet. So it might be that what are you going to do or say? It might be that you say to yourself, I'm going to breathe in and out and I'm not going to say anything. Right? I'm going to relax because my initial reaction is going to be to yell, and that is not going to be helpful for my child, and it's not going to be helpful for me. So the first thing I need to do is to breathe. Then the second thing is that I'm going to say one phrase only, and I'm going to say nothing else. So I'm going to say, remember, put for the toilet, and then that's it, right? Nothing else. And the temptation to give a lecture and tell all of these things, and go on and on and on, just reinforces to your child that they're doing the wrong thing. The next thing is that you want to just say that simple phrase, get them changed, and then move on and try and use your attention as a tool as much as possible. Now, for kids who are 3.5 and older, you can start introducing natural negative consequences that they will understand. So one of those might be that they get changed, and then you say to them, okay, well, it's going to take mummy or daddy, a good 3 minutes or 4 minutes to clean your underwear. So you're going to need to wait in a quiet, safe space while I do that. And that gives your child the message that, they're not in trouble. They're not getting yelled at or shouted at, but they need to actually have some thinking time because they're not just going to be able to go off into the play area and off they go, right? So they might get the message that they actually need to have a little bit of quiet time while you're cleaning their underwear. It might be that, you feel it's appropriate to get your child to clean themselves up as much as they can. So you might put them into a shower tray with some wipes and say to them that they need to try and take responsibility for their body and try and help clean themselves up, or clean their undies with a bucket of water outside or something like that for children who are 4. Now, some people listening to this are going to be like, there's just no way that fits with my parenting philosophy. And that's okay. You don't necessarily have to introduce negative natural consequences, but getting your child to take responsibility for their body and for having to clean themselves up can be a natural motivator, right, to actually help your child along the way. So as much as they're getting this positive reinforcement where they're like, oh yay, I'm doing the right thing and I'm getting all the celebration, they're also getting a negative consequence if they don't make an effort to go to the toilet or don't make an effort to use their pull-up. So obviously with the natural consequences, that would only be if your child consistently poos in their underwear and they're not really making any kind of effort to try and ask for a pull-up or use the kind of strategies that I've talked about earlier. So I did want to put this in here for those of you that have kids who are a little bit older, who feel like your child can do it, but is just choosing not to, because that can be another layer that you can add in. And obviously, if you're concerned and you're thinking, I'm not really sure if it's right for my child, then you're better to book a private consultation with me and we can talk through it rather than using kind of blanket things and saying, this is what I need to do. It might be that you feel more comfortable if you chat through it first, and then we can see if that's going to be right for your child, because every child's so different. Now, with disposable nappies, you want to avoid having a disposable on when they're walking around the house, okay? So if they're going to have their pull-up on and they're going to go and do their poo and the pull-up, and that's the stage that you're at, don't just let them walk around all day with a pull-up on and hope that there's a poo that gets caught in there, right? You really want to encourage them to ask you for a pull-up. If they're not doing that, then, you know, during that twice a day front door method, it might be that you offer them the toilet, they try and do a poo on it. If nothing happens, then put the pull-up on them and off they go, right? So you don't want them walking around the house for hours and hours on end. Give them a time frame of when the pull-up's going to go on and how long it's going to go on for, so they're quite clear about what the rules of the game are. And then they know, you know, what the consequences are for doing, you know, their poo and the pull-up. So it might be that they say, oh, I'd like to have some screen time. It's like, yay, it's time to watch such and such. Let's find the program that we're going to watch. Let's put a pause on that. You go and do your poo and your pull-up. We'll clean you up, and then you can push play, right? So you don't want to be having them in a disposable for hours and hours on end. Otherwise, they'll stop being really good with doing wees, and you've got them back to square one where they're just in nappies all the time. So you want to have that limited time. Now, if you're worried when you go out somewhere, or maybe your child goes to daycare or kindy or something, then you can use the bamboo absorbent liner and put it in either their wee pants if you're using those, or if you have some kind of other absorbent undies, then just put the liner there. And what it will do is it will actually catch the poo solids. It will let the liquids go through, but it will catch the poo solids and make cleanup a whole lot easier. So the less time that your child spends in disposables, the better, right? You really are trying to wean them off the need for that. So using other methods by keeping them in underwear, but offering, you know, putting the liner in there if needed and offering them a pull-up is a great option. Now, how to tackle the daycare issue. Okay, what do you do when your child goes to daycare then? Because let's face it, you're not going to be spending days and weeks in the house. Most of you are going to have other people looking after your kids. So if your child does go to daycare, then you want to have one teacher that consistently takes your child to the toilet, and they follow the same step that you're on. So if you've spent, you know, 5 days at home, you know, mainly, obviously you might still be going to the park or going to barbecues doing things, but the goal has been for your child to poo on the toilet with a pull-up on. Then the pull-ups need to go into the kindy bag or the daycare bag, and they need to be available for your child. And you need to say to the kindy or daycare teachers, please, my child needs to do a poo on the toilet, please just pop a pull-up on them and make sure they're sitting on the toilet to do their poos. Otherwise, if there's inconsistencies between what they're doing and what you're doing, then your child's going to get confused and they're going to start regressing. Keep great communication. So ask them to keep a record of the wee and the poo stops during the day so that you can see if there's any kind of pattern. Because it might be that your child consistently poos 20 minutes after a meal, which is very common. So a lot of kids will either poo 20 minutes after breakfast, or 20 minutes after lunch, or 20 minutes after afternoon tea, or after dinner, right? So that's where, if you can choose 2 times, 20 minutes after a meal, maybe 20 minutes after breakfast and 20 minutes after afternoon tea, to really encourage them to do wees and then do a poo afterwards, then you're more likely to get some success. So having that great communication with one teacher consistently taking them through the day, keeping a record of the wee and poo stops, and helping them to feel relaxed by following the same step as what you're doing, you're going to find that your child's going to make better progress. It's a good idea to have a stamp on the hand to reinforce that they're going to have a celebration at home. So when you come pick them up, if your child has a stamp on their hand, then you're praising them and saying, wow, that means that you, met whatever the goal was. And as soon as we get home, we're going to actually celebrate. And what some people will do is they'll use visuals. So they'll actually have a chart that might sit on the fridge, and their child has the chance to either choose the celebration toy, watching their favourite TV program, baking a cake, doing whatever, and they can actually have photos of each thing. And then when the kid gets home, they can actually choose which one is it going to be to celebrate how clever you've been today. So it feels like such a positive thing, because remember, if your child is still pooing in their pants or their nappy, they feel like they're playing a game that they're losing. What they need to do is they need to see little steps in the right direction. They need to see all the adults working in the same direction, and they need to see consistency of celebrating them doing the right thing for little steps along the way. So if you're going back to this idea here of having the steps, poos and a pull-up in the toilet room, you would give your child an instant reward after that every time they did it, until you could see that they were relaxed and ready to move to the next step. And so having the consistency of daycare doing the same thing, they might not be able to have screen time there. That's your child's currency. So by giving your child the message, I care what you're doing at daycare, well done, we're celebrating, you've been really clever, we're doing the same thing at home, you'll find it's easier and, progress happens faster. Now, if you have any questions or queries, you know where to find me. I hope that you have found this a super useful session for you and whoever's watching this with you, whether it be your partner or whoever. I want you to know that I am here to help, so feel free to contact me if there's anything that you need. I hope that you've enjoyed this webinar and that you now have some strategies that will reframe and help you to think about putting a plan together that's going to be specific for your child. Now, remember in this, you always need to make sure that this is based on medical advice. So if you do have any queries, just don't hesitate to go and see your GP and to ask to make sure that your child is going to fit within some of the things that I've talked about. What we talked about was the importance of them having no physical barriers in order for the behavioural side of things to be successful. So you need to get on top of those things first. The second thing is you always need to take with parenting advice a filter. What actually fits my parenting philosophy, what really is going to fit my child's personality, and what's going to work for us as a family in our family circumstances. So, as much as I've tried to give you advice, remember this is only blanket advice that I would give as a general thing. And if you need more specific help, then you know where to find me. Thanks so much for talking poos with me today. I wish you all the very best. I hope that there are strategies in here that will unlock your child and will help them to see that actually pooing on the toilet is a normal part of everyday life. And just like brushing their teeth and learning to put their socks and shoes on, it is going to happen. They just, need some little steps in the right direction to be independent with it. Don't forget to contact me and let me know what has worked well for you, because that will help me to help other parents and to put programs together that are going to work for lots and lots of people. So thanks for your time and have a great day. Bye.